Okay, let's take a look at this rooted room. If we take a look at this rooted room and scroll down, first thing we'll need to do is click Start Machine. That's where we start our target machine, the machine we will hack. So click on Start Machine. You'll see a little pop-up starting your machine, and hooray. And besides starting the target machine, we also need to start our attack box. Now here you have options. You can use either Kali Linux or the attack box. I'll use the default attack box. And you'll see a default window pop up here on the right. Now this will take a moment, so both machines are starting. So your hacker computer, the attack box, and the victim's computer, the target box. So the target starts a little faster. You'll see here an address appear in 33 seconds. And then we will see the attack box appear. So this is going to take a moment starting both machines. It's always like this. Starting these machines will take some time. When both machines are started, you'll see a desktop on the right with this attack box, and on the left you'll see the target IP address. So we can click complete, and we then did task 1. And we can go to task 2. You'll see this little terminal open. We just press enter and it disappears. Next, it asks us to get information about the targets. So this is the target IP address. The target computer has this address. And it asks us to scan using Nmap. Nmap lets you scan the target computer for any open ports. So that's a bit as if you're checking a house and seeing how many open windows there are. The same way Nmap works. It's a command line tool. And to check, it's quite simple. We start a terminal. And we might make this font a bit larger. Just for readability. Okay, so we open a terminal. Then we type Nmap to scan this target for any open ports. So an open port can be any service it's running. Maybe it has a remote desktop service or a file sharing service or any other type of service. So similar to a house, it might have open windows, open doors. Nmap scans a computer like that. So we type the target address. You can find it on the right. Now it won't be the same. This is dynamic. So every time you start an attack box, this target IP address, these numbers here, will be different. So let's type in those numbers and press enter. And you'll see it did a quick scan, and we see port here, the state, and the service. So it has a service called SSH and a service called HTTP. Now, as you might have seen before, HTTP, it often shows in web pages. That's because it's a web service. It allows your computer to show web pages. And SSH is like a remote desktop in the command line. It's a command line remote control. So we have two open. We have the first port here and the second port open. So that's akin to seeing a house and having two windows open, but the digital version. So in this case, we see two ports open. So we type 2, click submit, and you'll see the answer is correct. Now it's asking which version of SSH is running. With Nmap, you can specify additional flags. If I type Nmap and press enter, you'll see we can specify a lot of additional parameters. There's really a lot of stuff you can specify it. For example, we can use -O to detect the operating system, the target computer system. Is it running Windows, Mac, Linux, or something else? And if we scroll up here, you can see we can scan for all kinds of things. And what we want to know is version. So let's filter in here. See if we have any flags for version. So this one might be what we want, the service and version information. So we type nmap -sb followed by the address of our target. So that was this address. Press enter. Then we'll wait a second. And once this is completed, it will show us the version number. So in the case of SSH, you see here port 22 is open, SSH, and this is the version. So let's copy this version. We can copy this, paste it here, click submit, and correct answer. So it also asks us about Apache. Well, it's quite simple because if we could take a look at the next port 80 is open, is web service, and we see here the version number. And in this case, it only asks us the version number. So let's copy and paste that. Next, it asks us about the Linux distribution. So we know it's running Linux because it says here Linux, OS Linux, but it doesn't tell us anything else. So we might try to get the version or the type of Linux system it's running using the nmap. That's one way. Or we could try it using the web browser. So there are different ways to get this version number. In this case, we can try using the web browser because it's running a web service on port 80. You see here HTTP stands for web. So we can actually try to visit the web page. It is running. Let's try that. You open Firefox. It might take a moment to start up. Then we type the address again. Let's remove that pop-up. That's 10.10 dot something something. There we go. 89.169. And we press enter. And we'll see this is the web page is running. So we go down this page. We see some general standard page here. Not very interesting by itself. It just confirms that it's running this Apache software, this web server. So it asks us about which system it's running. Oh, actually, that's just Ubuntu. Click submit. There we go. And it tells us there's a hidden folder or hidden directory. So any web page, it just has files and folders. So a web page is simply a file and might be many files, and those files can be in different folders. So we could try to guess, of course, if there is something there. Maybe there's an admin there. Oh, seems there is. We could try to manually guess, but it would be quite tedious. So one tool you can use to scan for folders automatically is GoBuster. So if I open a terminal, we can type GoBuster, and you'll see this output. So with GoBuster, we can automatically scan. So we type GoBuster, and you see here one of the commands is dir. And what it will do is try from a word list to open automatically every word from that list. So if we have one word list here and users share word lists, you'll see we have a folder dirbuster. And in here we have, for example, this list. So let's take a look at that list. And you see it has all kind of words in it. So if we check the top ones, let's say we just go to the top of the list. Say the first 20 lines. So then it goes automatically first index, images, downloads, 2006, and so on. So that's as if it will then go to the website. And then the first one of that file is index. And then since, okay, not found, it goes to images. Then we go to downloads. So that's how we can figure out if those folders exist. But as you can see, doing this manually would take forever, especially if the list has hundreds or thousands of entries. So using this method, we can eventually find it, just like how I found it before by accident in this case. But usually you do that automatically. So we type GoBuster followed by dir, scanning for directories, -u, and then specify the link. So that's http://1010.89169 in our case. But of course, the address can be different on your computer. Then we need to specify a word list. You see here -w, so -w, and then specify a word list. And we specify the list. Let's see what we got here. Let's say the small list, directory list, 2.3 small, press enter, and it then starts scanning, and then we find the admin. So that's how they want you to solve it. They want you to use GoBuster and find that address in that way. Using this tool, it will automatically try every word in that file. Now, by accident, I guessed it before. So the answer, of course, is admin. And there we go. Now, let's go to task 3. Okay, so we found this admin panel on /admin, where we can type a username and password. Now, we need to know what is the username password. It might be that it might be a mistake, that they left some information behind. So we'll look at the page source, and I did that by right-clicking View Page Source, and you'll see that in this case, when I did that, it says a message from the developer. Hey John, if you don't remember, the username is admin. So in this case, we know the username is admin. If you don't have that, if they didn't leave anything in the login page by accident, you might need to try different ways to get the username. So it could be simply brute forcing the username and password. It could be finding it on the web, maybe through LinkedIn, seeing who works there, what could be the usernames, or some other names. In this case, the username is admin. And then we have a password. Now, we could simply try to get the passwords, so one by one. So we can try login, and you'll see it was not correct. Username or password is invalid. In this case, we know the username is correct. We might try something else. And you can imagine this would take forever, trying to guess the password. In movies, it often shows that they guess it after 3 guesses, but in real life, it doesn't really work like that. So instead, we can try an automated attack where we simply have a list of passwords, for example, a list of 14 million commonly used passwords, and try one by one to use them. So we can do that in the command line using a tool called Hydra. So let me enlarge the font size here. We can enlarge the font size, make it more readable, and we can use the command line tool Hydra. So Hydra is a brute force tool. It tries the passwords automatically. So it's a command line tool. If I press enter, it will give you a lot of output. These are all options for Hydra. You'll see it's full of options and things you can do. So with Hydra, we can automatically try to brute force it. So the command works like this: Hydra -L with the username, which we already found it was admin. Then we need to specify the password lists. Now on Kali Linux, there are password lists included, just like that 14 million password list. So if you go to the folder user share word lists, you'll find a password list, in this case of 14 million passwords, called rockutxt. So we'll reference that. So we type -p for the password lists, user share word lists rockutxt. Then we want to define what do we want to attack. What is the attack? So we type the target address. So that's the target address, your machine address. And then this is for the web. So we type HTTP post form. That is just a type of thing we are cracking. So in this case, it's a web page, a login page. It might be something completely different, like an email or a remote desktop. You see here RDP for desktop or POP3 for email. It depends on what you are cracking. So for the web, you can do an HTTP post form. Then the page we want to crack. So in this case, the page is /admin. That's the page we'll crack. And you need to type a quote. Let's see if I have this quote character on the keyboard. This one. You need to type it in this terminal. So we want to crack /admin. And then on the admin page, you'll see it's just /admin. That usually refers to index.php. So if I type index.php, you'll see it's the same. So let's refer that. Index.php. And besides this, we want to type the username and password. So we need to know what are these fields called. How do they say username and password? To find that, we can simply right-click, inspect, and you get this little pop-up. So it looks quite technical. Developers or software developers often use this kind of pop-ups. We click on this little mouse icon here, and then we point on this input, and you'll see here this input field has the name user. Now we can do the same with this other input field, and you'll see it has name equals pass. So those are the two input fields that we need. So in our field here, we type colon user is admin. We already know that's admin. Ampersand, pass, equals, and then we need to have this symbol, this. Okay, so we have this full command where we make the password dynamic. You'll see here the pass, and it checks, it verifies on the error message. So in this case, username or password is invalid. That comes directly from the error message. So if you type something here and click login, it will tell you that it's invalid. So if we press enter here, it will start cracking the password. And you'll see it starts cracking. Now this might take a while. It will try all the passwords one by one. And you'll see it's starting up right now. And yeah, it's just a matter of waiting. You'll see it's attacking now the address. And it found here the address. So you'll see here we found the username and the password. And we can now use that to log in. And we log in. And there we find the first flag. And also we know the username password, so we can type it in. And we have a flag that we can also paste in. So it takes a moment, and then we get a private key here, a file. It says, "Hi John, finished the development of the website. Here's your RSA private key." So we're gonna download that key. Right-click Save As, and we put it in Downloads. So in the questions, it asks us about a private passphrase. You'll see here what's the John RSA private passphrase. So we have that file in the downloads folder. If you want to enter the downloads folder, you can simply open the terminal and type cd downloads. And then if it's a ls, you'll see the commands. Now we have this file here. We can see the file contents if we type path followed by the file name. And you'll see all this gibberish. And on top it says encrypted, means this file is secured. So we can't see the actual contents. We need to crack it. So to crack it, first we can convert it. We can use a tool called ssh2john.py. So let's try that. Let's make it full screen and move this up. So that's ssh2john.py, and let's see if that's installed. And you'll see the command not found. So probably it is in user share John. Let's see. And in this case, this ssh2john.py is not installed. Let's try ssh2john. So I did a quick search with locate ssh2john.py, and I found it in opt-john ssh2john.py. With this tool, we can convert it. We can convert the file. So let's do that. We type the full location. Type the full location, opt-john ssh2john.py, followed by the file name. So that's the ID RSA, and then greater than the output, and we type RSA hash.txt. So that we do that because we want to extract the hash, the actual password hash, and that's the password in an encoded format. And then if we have the password in encoded format, we can then crack it. So we press enter, and now it created a new file, RSA hash.txt. If I list the files and folders, you'll see it converted that original file, the ID RSA, to this hash format. If we output it, you'll see it's a hash. It's a very long text code. And the reason we do that is because John is a hash cracking program. So the only acceptable output for John the Ripper is hashes. That's why we need to convert it to a hash. Now that it is a hash, we can start to crack it. So to crack it, we use John. John is a password cracking tool. So we simply type John RSA hash, and with the hashes, we can use a word list to try one by one different passwords and compare the hashes to the hash that we have in this file. We can type -- word list equals the rock.utxt file, which is stored in user share word lists rock.utxt, and I press enter, and it then starts cracking this hash. Now, depending on the hash, it might be very fast or it might take a while. In this case, it was right away. It cracked the hash, and we have the hash here. We can copy and paste it. So we'll type the hash, and now we only have one left, the user.txt. Now you might wonder, where is this user.txt? So our RSA keys are often used for SSH. SSH is used to remotely control a computer. So we can copy this RSA key, or we can add it to our SSH. So we can say SSH add ID RSA. And in this case, the permissions are not right, so we're gonna change them like this. Sets the right permissions. Then we add the key. The passphrase we know. And then we try to log in over SSH. So SSH is like remote desktop in the terminal. So it's command line terminal into another computer. And to use it, we simply type SSH, the username, John or admin, and then the address of the computer, which you can find in the target machine. And then yes. Now we're in the computer, and this computer probably has user.txt. Let's take a look. It has the file user.txt, and we can see the output by typing cat user.txt. And once you press enter, it will show the flag of user.txt. Next, we need to find the root password. Now, we might find it, could take a look around this computer. So we have the user.txt. We are now in the John directory. We could take a look in the bash history. Maybe they try to become the administrator, the root user, and made some typo. So let's take a look at the bash history. So that's a hidden file, .bash history, in the user folder home John. Let's see if there's anything in there. And we do see a lot of commands in here. Let's scroll up in this list, and we see that they typed different commands. I don't see any specific password in this list. They're doing different things, but no specific things. So let's try this command sudo -l to see what commands can be run as root. So it says user John may run the following command on rooted without password, bin cut. So what we can do is you run bin cut as root, it seems. So let's try that. And that's very useful because cut allows you to view files. So the passwords on Linux are stored in the etc password file. If we simply try to cut it, in the etc shadow file, these are the users. So this etc shadow, that's where Linux stores the files. So I'm gonna output that, and it tells you permission denied. Now, when I type sudo -l, you'll see it John, which is our current user, we are John, we can run this command without password cut. So we can actually type cut, which outputs file contents, and then we're gonna view etc shadow. And here we have the password hashes. So we have different users here. We have user John. This is the hash for our user. We already know the password for the user John, so we are interested in others. We have one for THM, but that's not the one we are interested in. We want to know root, and root is always on top of this file. So let's scroll up here, a little bit too much. Okay, it's a bit clumsy with this thing. Scroll tiny bit down. Or, yeah, let's just output the first line. First few lines of this file. Yeah, so we have the hash of the root user, which is this hash. Now we could try to crack it with John, or we can simply open a text editor, hash txt. Then we copy the hash, right click copy, paste it in, and then we save it, escape :W. Enter to save it in Vim, and Shift ZQ to quit. So that's just for Vim. Of course, you can use Sublime Text or any other text editor. And now we'll try to crack it. So we use JohnTheRipper to crack it. And we need the word list flag. So -- word list. We type John hash txt -- word list equals user share word lists rockutxt, and press enter. It will then start cracking the hash. And we then find the root password. We'll type it in and submit. And we then have that one correct. And then it asks us for root.txt. And then from here, we'll try to become root, which we can do with the command su. So su is the command to become root. And then we type the passwords, the root passwords. Now we're in the wrong directory and we're still in home John. So let's go to the root folder, where the administrator stores all the files. So we type cd/ and then cd root, which is the home directory of the user root, the administrator on Linux systems. We list the files and folders, and then we output that root.txt. And once you press enter, you'll get the flag and can submit the last flag.